Where's Peshu?
Yeah, I'm here.
And what would we do without Pashu?
I know, really. We would be lost without Peshu, I can tell you.
I wanted to thank Stephanie also. Stephanie,
Yeah, she's a,
there,
she's in a front.
the lady outside, Stephanie, who put together the event today.
Can I just go down?
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna use this.
Hi, everybody. Sorry about that for a quick little delay. Welcome to each of you. It's amazing to see so many people. As Robbie and Peshu told you, I am Laura Miller with Deep Forest Media. Appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us tonight. Special thanks to the Hive for hosting and getting such a big audience. I'm only going to take a few moments of your time tonight to talk about the mobile advertising landscape before we get to the main attraction. For the advertising world, clearly, looking at this slide, it screams that the users are on mobile, and this is where you need to locate your users. As you can see, earlier this year, mobile app usage took over desktop. That is a huge milestone in the advertising landscape. Enormous. Who would have thought? Many of you have seen, or possibly have seen, the Mary Meeker slide. I call attention to it because I feel like it's shown at every conference that I attend, and so hopefully you've heard of it as well. But really what it shows is that mobile advertising spend lags seriously behind desktop spending. The disparity is vast. About 20% of marketing dollars go towards desktop, whereas 4% go towards mobile. And again, that's not where the users are. Last year, $43 billion was spent in desktop advertising, whereas $7 billion was spent in mobile. It's a huge disparity. I would venture to guess, and I see many of them coming out right now as I speak, that all of us have at least one device on us at any given moment. Some of us have two, and I know very well that there are many in this room that actually have 3 devices on them right now, this very second. There is indeed a new paradigm needed for mobile. There is substantial data, like I just showed you on the previous slide, telling us that this is where the consumers are. The problem is, how do you reach them? The technology in mobile is very different from desktop, and of course other mediums as well, but desktop is most relevant. The beauty of mobile, as I mentioned, it's always with you. We carry these devices everywhere we go. This poses a huge opportunity to try to find these users, and that is what we're doing at Deep Forest. We use machine learning and data science to find these users on multiple devices and show them relevant ads that are particular to that moment in their life in a particular location. So this is how we are unlocking mobile advertising. And that's who we are. Deep Forest is bringing advanced data science and optimization to brands and agencies through our transparent full-stack platform. Excuse me. And this is who built the company. This is some of our background, some of our strengths and capabilities. As you can see, we have an extensive background in advertising technology, machine learning, data science, and much more. We have decades of experience solving for the most challenging problems in the ad tech domain. And this is how we solve for mobile. This is some of what we do. We'd love to tell you more about what we do and give you insight into some of the brilliance behind our company, and hopefully we will have an opportunity to do that in the future. This is where you can find us. With that, I'd love to introduce Nagi Prasad, who is the CEO and co-founder of Deep Forest Media.
Thank you, Laura. I'm sure you're all wondering, when will I get to hear Phil? It feels like you go for a Harry Potter movie and you're smothered with trailers in the beginning, right? Very soon. It's my privilege to introduce Phil Mui, who is currently the Chief Product and Technology Officer for Axiom, the big marketing data company. I've known Phil for a very long time, back to our grad school days at MIT. And Phil has a PhD in machine learning and AI. Yes, those people still do exist. And was a Marshall Scholar at the University of Oxford. And I'm sure I'm missing 5 other scholarships that Phil has. Over the past 15 years, Phil built an impressive track record of leading product creation, execution, and innovation at companies like Microsoft, Oracle, and Google. More recently at Google, he led Google Analytics for 6 years and also led the development of annotation infrastructure that underlies Google Maps, reviews, ratings, and Google+. In the last 2 years, he has successfully spearheaded a number of initiatives at Axiom, including one to increase their innovation footprint as evidenced by many-fold increase in patents filed. You can talk to some of the Axiom people. It's many-fold increase in patents filed. Without much ado,
All right.
Phil.
Thank you, Maggie. So, hello everybody. If anyone is is outside, there may still be places in the bar you can come in if you want to. So, I prepared a few slides, and in fact, there are a few seats in the front. Okay. So, before I begin, right, I have to admit, this entire term of data is not exactly the sexiest thing to talk about at 7 o'clock at night. So I want to be provocative and ask a question, okay? What is better than Stanford plus MIT plus Harvard? And to be precise, to a 5 years old. Okay, anybody?
Sesame Street.
An iPhone.
You know, for a group of techies, I'm very disappointed with the answers. Haven't you heard about the Jedi Academy? So in many ways, for those who have been there, anyone know where it is? Where's Jedi Academy? Where? Yes, at Disneyland, that's right, of course, right? For those, yeah. For this particular, I'm not sure there's one at Disney World, but this one is at Disneyland. And the way that I found out was, I have a 5-year-old last year. This is actually a real story. These are real pictures, right? And I'm going to talk about data in a second, but something very important, right? Life. So my 5-year-old, through already the influence of social medias and TVs and display ads and things like that, already know that the best place in the world to go to for university is the Jedi Academy, because he wanted to go. And so let me introduce you to my son. He's now 6, but this is a year ago. This is my son, Theo. And did anyone notice what he is wearing? What's that?
Mickey head?
Anybody know?
Cards.
Cars? Okay, anybody else? A big smile, okay. So I'm not sure whether it's Cars or Mickey Mouse or whatever. I can tell you this is a $24.99 hat. So why would a 6-year-old, when we first walked into Disneyland, because he wants to attend the Jedi Academy, why would he want a hat? Anyone know? Okay, by the way, anyone have been in the Jedi Academy with your children? Okay, so for those who have been there, don't say anything. Well, it turns out, in this, we went in, we bought this brightly colored hat, and the purpose is this. He wants to jump up and down, right? Of course, not for me, but for this guy, the Jedi Master, right? So imagine if you are a 5-year-old child, and there are about 40 of you, or maybe over 100 of you, right? How do you stand out so that the Jedi Master will pick you? Well, of course, you wear a brightly colored hat that is Disney branded, right? So I bet you somewhere along the line of the training of the Jedi Master, there was a discipline of pick the kid with a Disney hat. So all that said, when this is all done, of course, it is all for this 5-second moment. That's my son, by the way. And for those of you who don't know, that is the ultimate evil in the universe. And my 5-year-old son had the experience of fighting this ultimate evil. So I want to just pause for a second, right? That's a good story, and some of you may appreciate it, right? But at the end of the day,
What happened to his hat?
his hand needs to be taken off because I need to pay for another. And does anyone know how much that plastic thing, saber, whatever you call it, what do you call it? Lightsaber. How much does that cost? Anybody know? Yeah, it's $19.99. So, of course, for this basically 5-second moment, right, the entire trip plus all the paraphernalia is probably a few $100s. But let me pause for a second for anyone who has a child at home. Which one of you would not be willing to pay a few $100s for a 5-second experience for your child? Right here, 5 seconds. Everybody would, right? And so now let's get back to the topic today, right? Which is big data or marketing, right? So that experience I just walked through with you has gone through all of that algorithm design, AI targeting, display advertising, DSP, DMP, etc. Right? Many of the stuff that people in this audience are working on. Because otherwise, why would my son know about Disney at all? Or about the fact that there is this place called a Jedi Academy. And in fact, if I want to put it in the professional lingo, this is a moment that's accumulated from a multi-channel, multi-touch marketing campaign, resulting in a 5-second moment that I, as a parent, is willing to pay hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for. Well, to put it bluntly, that's what marketing is doing, right? So it turns out all of this follows a dogma within Walt Disney's mission, which is this: to be relevant with every guest, everywhere, every time. Right? That's the mission that drives everything that Disney does. And this is the corporate mission. So if I break that down, right, and Disney is a client of ours, Walt Disney has a problem with this mission. And the problem is this. In creating relationship magic, which is really what marketing is supposed to be doing, Walt Disney has many disciplines of marketing, such as social media, CRM campaigns, online targeting, in-store promotions, and so on. But the challenge is these are all done by different groups of marketers within Disney. So I want all of us to think about your own company or your clients who are working on this. Most likely, you are working with a sliver of a channel that is within a larger marketing team that is hooked together, hopefully, by somebody called a CMO. And so the challenge, Tom Boyle, the SVP, right, of Disney, that he summarized for us, for Walt Disney worldwide is this. Someone at Disney always owns a moment with a customer, but no one owns the guests. So let's just reflect that for a second. It's a little one of these Jedi quote, right? What does it mean to own a moment? It means that for that display ad that is beautifully shown to you through the Forest Media, somebody in a creative agency have spent thousands of dollars, if not tens of thousands of dollars, to create that moment with you. But who is making sure that experience with a customer is connected throughout the customer journey? Well, I don't know any real company that's doing all of this today. And so, in many ways, the challenge has, of course, a solution that everyone is looking for. And the solution cannot be simpler than 3 words. And the opportunity for a lot of VCs and marketers is connect the moments, of course. That sounds so simple. So let's break that down, what that means. So a few years ago, I was leading the development of Google Analytics. And I think there may be some users in the room, hopefully. And so I want to talk about a study that we did in Q4 of 2011, maybe 2010, right, as a team. And what we looked at is look at basically all the traffic that is coming through Google Analytics, which is roughly about 70% of traffic that has tags on it worldwide, right? That's the scale we're talking about. And we want to look at all sessions that landed in a conversion. Okay? Conversion could be a purchase, it could be a loan application, it could be whatever it is that is defined as a conversion event. And Google Analytics call it a goal, right? Those who are familiar with it. And I'm going to plot some like real data so that you can get a sense, right? So this is, of course, very statistically significant. And so let me talk about one number here. Since our friends here work on display, right? So display advertising is a banner. Think of it as a banner or a click on a mobile device. Across an entire quarter of all 70% of traffic on the web, you're looking at roughly a click on a media is roughly 3.1 clicks away, or 3.1 sessions away from a conversion. And so what does that mean? Well, let's take a look at, we need to be relative here, right? So let's compare that to social media. For example, if you see a social ad when you log into Facebook and you click on it, you are roughly 1.9 sessions away from a conversion. So what that means is, back in 2011, a display ad is more upper funnel than those that is on a social media site, or in that particular time. And so those of you who are familiar with this thing called a purchase funnel, so there is this notion of awareness, right? And display is well known to be a channel that is raising awareness about a product. And then when it comes to social, right, it's about consideration, maybe because your friends is using it, right? So if your friend is using it, then of course I may also want to go to Disney too, right, for example. And then let me fill in the rest, right? So a few of these you will recognize. So email and paid search, right? Email is roughly 1.4 sessions away, so it's lower funnel still. And of course, for those of you who are doing SEO and SEM or the search campaigns, it is to your heart's content now that there is now proof, right, as evidenced by this diagram, that roughly a paid search click is roughly 1 click away from actual purchase. That's what you would normally expect of an event that is very close to conversion. And then of course, if I go all the way to the end, the most dramatic difference here is those who actually type disney.com/Jedi Academy coupon. Those are roughly half of a session away. And for good reason. Because the only reason you know that the URL exists is because you want to buy something or you want to convert, right? So all is not lost for the display marketer. In order for somebody to come direct to your marketing website, landing pages, whatever it is that you call it, you must have discovered it through some awareness campaign, through some display advertising, right? So perhaps. And so the main point here is, many of us, marketing generally is a channel-centric discipline. When we think about what kind of marketer we are, we say we're a digital marketer, we're an email marketer, we're a search marketer. And in many ways, we are fragmenting the customer into the channels of interest to us without realizing a customer doesn't care about a channel. The customer cares about the entire experience. And so the question now is, how do we tie this experience together? And so to do that, today, right, as advertised, I'm going to talk about 3 things. So I talked about an experience, right, and also talked about some of the fragmentation of the customer journey. So what exactly is the problem, right? We're all computer scientists here, and VCs and developers. Like, what is the real problem? Right? What is the thing that we can put our hands around and solve? Secondly is, once we identify what the problem is, what has been tried? Like, we want to learn from mistake. And then lastly is, for those that doesn't work, the problem that has not been solved, what are the opportunities so that we can make a lot of money from it? Or we can improve the human condition through making the customer journey really wonderful. That's what VCs would call it. Okay, so first, what's the problem? So the problem, right, can be aptly summarized by an adage that many of us are familiar with, which is the myth of the blind man, or the blind woman in this case, and the elephant. And so what do we mean by that? So to be precise, right, let's take a look at one part of the elephant. For those of us who are developers, right, we touch, and this part is the hard stuff, right, the stuff that we pride ourselves in, that nobody else understands better than we can. So what is this hard stuff? Well, I call it big data. Right? To be precise, I want to look at big data not in terms of this vague, like, you can say anything you want kind of a thing, which is what everybody is calling it these days. Anything more than a terabyte is big data. That's not it, right? I want to look at big data as a problem. So why is it a problem? Well, let's take a look at big data for a second. So of course, the canonical definition, right? I think that there's a professor here that I just met earlier today. Yes. And if you take a look at the academic literature, right? They would say, well, if you talk about big data, that's different than just anything more than a terabyte. Well, there are three things you want to characterize. The VVV, right? Volume, variety, velocity. But to be honest, for those of us who are working in the field, we care less about the data, we care more about the technology, right? The technology stack, the stuff that we love to talk about. So I want to talk about why this is so hard. So here's a history lesson over the past 20 to 30 years. And this is, of course, just one opinion. And I want those of you, I know somebody is from ScaleDB here today, right? So I'm going to ask a question in a second. So there are two dimensions here. One dimension is the x-axis, gigabytes, terabytes, petabytes. The y-axis here is the access time, right? Whether you want lag time or whether you want real time or interactive time. And so in the past 20, 30 years, since System R and Michael Stonebreaker and stuff like that, right? We have been experiencing many types of database technologies, right? To store all this amount of data. So in the early days, right, 1978 onward, there's the OLAP, OLTP stuff, right? That the older generations are very proud of and still underlies a lot of financial systems. And let me put in some names here, right? So names such as Oracle, Microsoft SQL, MySQL, et cetera, fall into this. As well as many of you are working in so-called data warehouse company, right? Such as Teradata, right? So here's a lesson in marketing naming. Never name your company after a size. So 20, 30 years ago, terabytes of data is a lot of data, right? Like whoever needs more than a terabyte of data anyway? Just like who needs more than 640K of memory? Well, today, if you're using Teradata, the question is, can you handle a petabyte of data? Right? So never do that. And of course, it's also lag time. So in the real-time space, for those who are in the financial services, right, stock trading, the professor again is a hedge fund manager. So it turns out running around a lot of Wall Street systems, right? TIBCO is probably come up on top as a system that able to, of course, all this stuff costs a lot of memory. And so TIBCO has a database called Stream in-memory streaming database. And then for handling so-called complex events processing. And for many of us who are developers, we are all very familiar with in-memory databases, right? Such as Memcache, right? How many of you use Memcache? Probably many of you, right? So you just plug it in, it just works. And then for those of us who like to use, for example, to do graph inferences, right? So many of us use Neo4j. It doesn't scale very well, over 1 million nodes, right? So we would upgrade it to use GraphSQL, which is a local data startup in the area. In the past 10 years, actually no, since 2005, right? Since the publication of the big table, as well as the MapReduce papers in Google, a whole slew of so-called MPP, but batch mode technologies come up. This is the MapReduce and Hive, MongoDB, HBase, and so on. But in many cases, these technologies cannot be run. Like you don't want to run a real-time system on MapReduce, right? You don't want to do that. Now, of course, if you just want to do a key value pair lookup, it's fine, right? HBase, Cassandra can do that. And so really the holy grail of where everybody is going to, right? That's why computer science still exists, is how do we handle petabytes of data, as much data as possible, but in interactive time. So some of you may be familiar with these systems, right? Aerospike, so all the tech companies that are out here, you're probably using Aerospike. And then since we're here on Page Mill, and SAP is down the street, SAP has a system called HANA, which costs you an arm and a leg to buy. But I guess that's why SAP prices the share price is doing so well. And then, of course, more recently, Berkeley, right, came up with Spark, right? In many cases, this is the replacement for MapReduce, but able to do it at least a tenth of the processing speed. And of course, there are all kinds of other technologies, right? Within Cloudera, there's some efforts on Impala, and so on. Now, I think this is probably an unfair, this is simply an opinion, right? I'm sure this is wrong, but I'm curious, am I missing any big technologies that somebody is in your mind that I haven't mapped onto this 2x2? Am I missing something? Yes?
particular.
Apache drills.
Where would you put it?
It's like
Yeah.
Impala.
It's like Impala. So probably in that case, it would be very similar to here. And Drew, is that the Dremel stuff? The Google Dremel stuff? Oh.
Maybe the map-on version of it.
Okay, got it. So first of all, let's back up for a second, right? We almost salivate over the stuff on this slide because we love stuff that are hard. At least that's what keeps the job security. So, but let's imagine, what is the problem here we're trying to solve? Well, the problem is we want to help the marketer, the user, to serve the consumer well. If the technology every 3 months changes, and all of us only talk in those languages, we are creating a big barrier between the marketers, who are not technical generally, right, to actually serving the consumer problem. That's why there are a lot of marketing systems that are still written in this incredibly archaic languages and archaic systems, right? So big data is a problem in this sense. It is not the solution. But thank goodness to big data, we all have jobs. So we also talked about the fragmented customer journey. And I want to, of course, whenever people talk about fragmentation, you have to bring up the Luminoscape diagram. Now, of course, this Luminoscape diagram, for those of you who have seen this, anybody who has seen it, let's raise your hand first. Okay. So so a few of you doesn't know it. So there's this dude named Terry Kawaja. And so, of course, for those of you who know about this diagram, you also know the big secret, which is, it is not one diagram. It is actually about 30. One per channel that you care about. Video, social, display, and so on. And on there are thousands, if not tens of thousands of companies. And so what's the problem with that? The problem is, if each of these companies, and many companies are only serving a particular channel. And the problem is, if we as technologists think about the problem from a channel perspective, and we provide solutions to the marketer with a channel perspective, we are compounding the fragmentation problem. But we are encouraging marketers to think about the channels only. And so, the war of this channel centricity is creating another problem that ultimately created this blind man and the elephant issue. And so, let's do a fundamental approach, right? Let's go back to think about what is the real problem we're trying to solve. Is it the DSPs and the ad exchanges? Is it the ad agencies? Is it the DSP? Is it the media planning tool, attribution tools? Well, all of those are point solutions. So let's hide them all. Let's start with a blank slate of paper and really look at what is on the left and the right of this. So on the left of this are the marketers. These are the people who have money that wants to reach customers on the right-hand side. And really, what they want to do is not to decide which platform to use or which application to adopt. It's very simple, the problem. They want to create a beautiful, magical relationship with the consumer. That's it. Of course, not for charity, but so that the consumer can walk back with an appropriate conversion event. Right, of course. Right? Somebody needs to pay for all this big data technology. Right? So if that is the problem, right, who in the marketing technology space is trying to solve this relationship, creating this magical relationship between the market and consumers today? Well, not many. And so, let me talk about the other part of the elephant, the other end of the elephant, right? The rope. Right? If you touch the elephant rope, well, you're not quite sure what it is. So you might think it's a rope. So why do I say that? So it turns out today, marketers try to kid ourselves about what it is that we are touching, the data that we are touching. So what is it? What are the stuff that we are touching, right? So let me introduce my friend, Rebecca Jones, right? One of the most favorite person in my company. At least we talk about her a lot. So let's think about her just like every one of us here. During the weekend, I carry two devices with me, an iPad, an iPhone, maybe a laptop, right? On every one of these devices, unless it's an iOS device, there's a cookie, a third-party cookie, right? And at the same time, there are device IDs associated with it, and so on and so forth. And of course, during the workday, she has like a Windows 7 device and a BlackBerry, whatever, right? A couple of different other devices with another set of cookies, another set of device ID. So there are many companies in the Valley, as well as around the world, that are trying to tell you, hey, listen, I want to help you do audience targeting. Isn't that sexy? Audience targeting. I want you to target this specific person you want to target. Well, if you're smart, ask them, what is your unit of targeting? Well, they would say, we would do 7-day active unique cookies. Well, which one of the 12 are you talking about? So if you are really good at engineering, right, you can do 1 day, 24 hours, 7-day unique, or whatever active that you want. Nevertheless, if your unit analysis at a cookie level, you're lost. So the better solution now, and a number of folks in the Valley here, right, Kamashi at Jawbridge, Lifeframe, etc., try to do it at the device level. I can help you figure out who it is that is on that device. Unit analysis, device ID, IDFA, right? The problem is, which device? The behavior, right, on different devices is different, of course. Never mind the fact that the majority of interaction these days, meaningful economic activities, still happen offline. And so the question now is, for those offline conversion events, whether it is through the home shopping network that you call up via the phone, or through the mail and catalogs, right? Those events is stored in a point of sale system that is still run using COBOL. Now, no matter what a beautiful e-commerce experience that you have, those purchases that were made online most likely are separated from those point of sale systems that underlies the majority of economic activities worldwide. So without asking anything fancy, I just want to ask some basic business question, right? How many people actually made purchases in my company in the past week? Well, if you cannot connect these two systems, you cannot answer this very basic question. But I don't think it's asking too much. And the second question, right? On a per person basis, what is the average purchase per person? A reasonable request. Well, not many people can do that today, unless you are pure digital or you're pure offline, right? So there's a problem, right? That's why I'm saying this rule problem, we technologists tend to hang on to the thing that's easiest. We can measure cookies, so therefore we analyze everything by cookies, without realizing that we're not really solving the real problem. Let me talk about the snake, which is the, if you touch an elephant trunk, you're like, oh, it looks like a snake. So what do I mean by that? The purchase funnel. So what's a purchase funnel? Many of you know about the top part of this, right? Which is from awareness, consideration to intent to lead to store. So earlier today, I met some, but once a conversion happens, of course, conversion, there are some additional retention and customer churn reduction events that you need to do. And most of us only consider, of course, only the point until conversion. And conversion to me here means more than just a purchase transaction, right? The finance guys worry about that. But as technologists, conversion is a very special event. Conversion is when a unknown customer become known, right? They could put in a credit card, email, shipping address, and so on. So for those who are doing investing, right, I'm going to be speeding through a lot of companies in the next minute, right? So believe me, there's a point coming up. So data is collected, of course, at every single part of the customer journey, right? So at the top of the funnel, right, is usually what marketers call brand advertising. And brand advertising is display, TV, radio, print ads, right? Or social media ads and so on. So a company like Google, Facebook, Twitter is really at the top, right, generally. Google DoubleClick, right? Oh. And then from awareness, when would you start considering something, right? When you search for something, you're certainly considering something. And in fact, search is probably the world's very best direct response advertising vehicle ever created in human history. Why? Because you will never search for something that you don't intend to buy. That's why it's consideration. So in that case, companies like Bing, Google, Baidu, etc., right, really dominate this space. The next step, once you are considering something, you develop an intent to buy, right? So-called lead generation in phase here. So companies, Marketo, right? A company like HubSpot, and earlier today I met a gentleman doing social lead generation. Nick's Principles, who is sitting somewhere in the room here. So there's this whole slew of company, right, whose purpose in life, affiliate marketing, for example, is focused exclusively on lead generation. Now, when it comes to content marketing, right, the next step from lead into the store, you want to make sure that the landing page is beautiful. Right? So companies like Adobe, who has acquired a company called Informatica, Optimos, Google Analytics with the website optimizer product is optimizing the experience, in-store experience with the appropriate content. But there are a lot of personalization engines on the market that does that. The point of conversion is very special, as I mentioned, and there are all kinds of payment systems and things like that, Square, etc., that helps you capture that event. But the most important here is to turn a consumer into a customer. Consumer is unknown into a customer that is known in my database. Once the conversion happens, retention marketing comes in. So what are these? This is your United Mileage Card program, right? Many of you are United Mileage Card program. It basically means you are a slave to an airline, right? Because you are retained to, hopefully you get that free Hawaii vacation coming up, right? And finally, reactivation. Reactivation is loyalty card programs. Epsilon, Axiom, Experian really do very well here. Okay, so the last 2 minutes a little painful, right? I talked to a lot of companies. Let me ask you a big question. We all understand the customer journey. We all know these stages of the marketing funnel. Did I ever mention one company more than once in the last 2 minutes? Well, because I accidentally mentioned that. And it's because also I work there, right? But even Google does not touch anything that's PII. Right? So here's the point, right? We all understand the fundamental problem is about the customer.